Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we're going to be doing another weapon breakdown for Battlefield 2042, and this time we're going to be covering the PP-29. In these weapon breakdowns, we're going to go through a bunch of stats that you guys need to know, such as the rounds per minute, reload times, bullet velocity, damage over distance, bullets to kill over distance, and time to kill over distance as well. On top of those stats, we'll then go over the recoil pattern for the weapon, and then lastly I'll go over 3 unique loadouts that I've crafted for specific playstyles, for those of you who aren't 100% sure on which attachments to use. Before we get into it, if you guys do end up enjoying the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new to the channel, then definitely hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications, as there's going to be plenty more content like this on the way in 2022. With that being said though, guys, let's get stuck right into my weapon breakdown for the PP-29. So the PP-29 is obviously classed as an SMG, and you unlock this one at level 18, so you can get your hands on it pretty early on. It has a magazine size of 54, which is obviously great for an SMG, and it fires at a rate of 649 rounds per minute, which is the slowest out of the SMGs in 2042. Now for its reload times, it takes 1.96 seconds for a tactical reload, which is when you manually reload it, or it has an empty reload time of 2.43 seconds, which is when it automatically reloads after running out of bullets. As for the velocity, it sends its ammunition down range at 520 meters per second, which is actually the fastest out of the SMGs currently in the game by quite a bit actually, and so it does make up for that slower rate of fire by being a little bit better at range. Now getting into the more detailed stats for the PP-29, keep in mind that these values are all based off of body shots, and when it comes to SMGs, headshots have a 2x multiplier, so any value that you guys see in these graphs are just doubled when you land them to the head rather than the torso or the limbs. The PP-29 deals 26 damage per bullet up to 19 meters, then between 20 and 74 meters it drops down to 22 damage per shot, and then at 75 meters and beyond it drops down to 18 damage per shot, so it has a relatively smooth drop off when it comes to the damage and deals more damage at range than any of the other SMGs. As for the bullets that it takes to kill over distance, it takes 4 shots to kill up to 19 meters, then between 20 and 74 meters it takes 5 shots to kill, and then at 75 meters and beyond it'll take 6 shots to the body to kill an enemy. Lastly, moving on to the time to kill over distance, it kills in 277 milliseconds up to 19 meters, then 369 milliseconds between 20 and 74 meters, and from 75 meters and beyond it will take 462 milliseconds to kill. Obviously, these stats do vary quite a bit once you account for headshots and miss shots like I mentioned, but assuming you hit every shot to the body at these ranges, then these stats are accurate according to that situation. Now moving on, we have the recoil pattern for the PP-29, and as you can see, it actually has some very easy to manage recoil, in that it does actually have quite a bit of vertical recoil, which was part of the nerf right around the time of launch. However, there's really not a whole lot of horizontal recoil at all, so it does kick quite a bit, but it is actually very easy to manage. This is just the factory PP-29 that I'm showing here. I do have some videos on the channel covering some different attachment types and how they affect recoil and the overall weapon behavior though, so be sure to go and check those ones out as well. Now moving on, like I mentioned, I've actually crafted 3 different loadouts that I often like to use on the PP-29 depending on the mode or the map or just how I feel like playing in general. So if you're not 100% sure on which attachments to use, then hopefully this can give you guys a good starting point, and obviously these can be slightly altered and adjusted to your own preferences, so these are by no means set in stone. Also keep in mind that you can obviously bring 3 attachments per slot in the plus system, so technically you can bring all 3 of these loadouts along and change them on the fly. The first loadout that I wanted to cover is the close range build, and this one is really fun to use in any close quarters situations. Despite being a bit of a longer range SMG, it does still do really well up close, so this is definitely one of the better loadouts for those situations. For the sight, I always recommend the Fusion Hollow simply because it is just the clearest of the smaller scopes. For the ammo, I use the standard issue rounds. There aren't a whole lot of options here anyway, and these are just the best considering it is already a fairly large magazine size. For the underbarrel, there are actually no attachment options for the PP-29, so there's nothing to change here. And then lastly, for the barrel, I use the tactical compensator, which just increases the accuracy of your shots while adding a little bit of extra recoil, which obviously isn't too much of an issue at close range. Now moving on to the second loadout that I wanted to cover, this one is the added range build, and exactly as it sounds, this one just makes the PP-29 a little bit more viable at longer ranges. images. For the sight I use the 8R hollow scope. This one is a personal favourite of mine as it has a nice clear sight while also giving a tiny bit of extra zoom. For the ammo I use the high power rounds as they just slightly increase that damage at range, which is obviously perfect for this build. For the underbarrel, again just the factory option. And then lastly for the barrel I use the Warhawk compensator as this will reduce your recoil at the cost of a little bit of accuracy, meaning the bullets will spread a tiny bit more, but that reduced recoil will help you stay on target. Now lastly for the third loadout, this one is the metal loadout, and this is essentially just my main loadout personally that is pretty much in use the majority of the time with this weapon. For the sight, weirdly enough, I use the K8 hollow, even though I always say that I prefer the fusion hollow. I'm not sure why honestly, but I just like the look of this one a little bit more on the PP-29. It is purely an aesthetic thing for me, so any of the regular red dot type scopes are pretty much the same. For the ammo I use the standard issue magazine again, as this is just the all around best. For the underbarrel, again there are no options here, and then lastly for the barrel I use the Warhawk compensator as I do just like that reduced recoil, considering the PP-29 does tend to have a little bit of kick on it. Like I said, this is my personal favourite build for the PP-29 and it's one that I'm pretty much running around with more often than not, so hopefully you guys enjoy this one as much as I do. So that is pretty much it for the PP-29 guys. Personally, this is one of my favourite SMGs in the game. I know the MP9 is my favourite, but honestly all three of the other SMGs are kind of just on par for me, so I'm not too sure where I'd rank it, but just having a bit of extra range really does suit my playstyle, so I do use this one quite often. Up next, I'm hoping to cover the 12M auto shotgun for the utility class, but other than that, let me know what weapons you guys want me to cover next, as I'm largely going to base them off what you guys want to see the most, so be sure to leave some recommendations down in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to leave a like down below, and if you are new, then consider subscribing to the channel with those notifications on. If you guys want to support the content that I make here on YouTube, then consider becoming a channel member. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you all out there on the battlefield.